Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
How would you like to make your first million in sales, but doing in a conscious way? And we're talking about how you can actually become a global conscious entrepreneur. Today we have a special guest that is going to cover a lot of content about this. Steve, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Steve Rice. I am the co-founder of the Globally Conscious Leader. I've been working with manufacturers and been an entrepreneur 40 years, 30 years plus. And I hail from Oregon in the United States, in a little town called Ashland, home of the Shakespeare Festival.
Okay, so what can you define what is a conscious entrepreneur in your own words?
Well, basically, the way I put it is, if you don't want to accidentally harm your granddaughter, then you're a globally conscious entrepreneur. And by extension, if you don't want to harm accidentally your granddaughter, why would you do that to the granddaughters of your employees or your third-party vendors in another country? To me, it's that simple. It crosses political boundaries. In America here, the idea of sustainability and globally conscious leadership might cross political boundaries or have some political overtones. And we're basically saying, no, it doesn't. You either care about your grandkids or you don't.
Yeah, and I think that entrepreneurs during the course of the years we can actually make more advances in this area than actually the politics, right?
Yeah.
And I think is how we educate the consumer as well, because if the consumer don't buy, we you don't have you cannot move forward. And during some research that we have done here in United Kingdom, this is what we find out. We find out that the employees, right, they even prefer to get paid less if the company that they're working for, they have ethical values and they are thinking in a sustainable way. I think that the millennials and the new generation, they understand the world that they live in and the world that they're gonna leave behind to the generations. And so this is what we find out in terms of the employees. You know that the whole secret of have a successful company is attract talent. So by companies being out there and doing well in terms of the consciousness, um, that can help to attract a lot of talent, right? But also with the client, with the consumer, we find out that the companies that behave ethically, they have big customer retention, and they have more lower cost in customer acquisition. And sometimes,
Yeah.
so what's the point? Some of the companies, right, spending millions and millions trying to acquire the clients in TV advertising, in marketing, you name it, and then because they don't behave ethically, right, they spending a fortune on that to acquire the client, and then they're losing market share because at the end of the day, let's face it, the consumers have become really, really savvy. They're not stupid anymore, so they know. They read more the label, where the packaging come from, where the elements of the product have, and this is the world that we live in. So, what's your take in those companies, or what would be your message to this company that I won't say especially in United States because it won't be fair, right? I think that in my when I was young, right, it was like the 70s, the 80s, it was the era of the waste, right? Let's do these American cars because in Cuba we have lots of them. They're still around. So imagine how
Right.
strong was the steel, This like a train. Those cars from 1950, they're still around,
Yep.
So we went, and then we have the Russians products as well. They usually was over designed and they use a lot of material more than they actually needed, right? Um, So that's the word that our parents live, and when we were kids, that was the what we saw, right? We saw a fridge, right, building with very strong metal materials and things like that. And today is totally the other way around. We have to be efficient. We have to research in materials. We have to make sure those materials they are more recyclable as possible. So, what do you think in terms of the minds? And the thing is like this: that we have politicians leading leading us, where they are from our generation, and then you have the consumer that they are a young generation, right? So, in your view, what is the message that you have for these companies out there that they don't take in these consciousness entrepreneurs seriously, and they think that the main goal here is to hit the target, to increase the sales, to make profit, and the rest is secondary?
Well, the main starting message would be to say that we believe that every business, and I mean every business, regardless of size, is uniquely situated to contribute effectively to and benefit from, reversal of climate change and resource management and stuff like that. So a company doesn't even have to necessarily recognize, although we would want it to, that its best product is social good. But even if you're an owner and you say pshaw to that, you can still drive excellence in your organization and be better by applying the same principles that I would say lead to a more globally conscious company. And the main thing I would say is that there's this thing I like to tout called non-arguable goals. Are you familiar with those, Harry?
Go ahead.
Okay. The very first one I ever heard about was Paul O'Neill, who revolutionized Alcoa in the 80s and 90s. And when he became CEO, he got in front of the board, or not the board of directors, but the shareholders meeting. And he said, look, Alcoa is in the tank right now. Nobody's buying our stock. You brought me on board. Here, we're going to fix this by having a single non-arguable goal. And he said, we're going to focus on 0 worker days lost to injury or illness. And everybody ran out the back door and sold their Alcoa stock. And his main point, though, was like, raise your hand if you would like to lose that in a manufacturing accident. And what he recognized is that how an organization treats its staff is directly related to how it does everything else. Like, there's a book, how you do anything is how you do everything, or maybe it's how you do everything is how you do anything, right? It's all connected. So he basically said, that's our non-arguable goal. 0 people get injured, 0 people get sick, 0 sick days. And that's an efficiency measurement. And there's a direct relationship between how well you treat your employees and how safe that workplace is and the number of sick days they take. Because many sick days are not taken because someone's sick. They're taken because, as my friend says, they have a vision problem. I don't see myself going to work today, right? I'm not invested in this company.
Yeah.
So what I would say,
employees are not motivated, they don't come, they call you and they say they are sick. Sometimes,
yeah. And meanwhile, they're going to get a job somewhere else.
Yeah,
Like you said, people are smart. They know what's going on. And so here's the message that I like to tell people is what I'm telling people, what we're doing at the Globally Conscious Leader is we're stating a non-arguable goal called 0 unmeasured externalities. And an externality is just something you don't know yet. This word was invented in 1920s by an economist. It basically means things that are, an externality is an effect upon somebody that they weren't expecting. It's often defined in manufacturing terms as something that's not included in cost of goods, that's not passed on. To me, I don't really care about those definitions. The one about being something outside, it's something we don't know that we need to measure. And what I tell people is, you are doing this every day, all the time. You just don't realize it. And in a business, you just might not be doing it well. For example, if you're a project manager, if you're a waterfall project manager, your job is to uncover all of the externalities beforehand and try and map out the project, figure out what the timeline is, and then create a waterfall chart. If you're an agile project manager, your job is to discover as much as you can, get everybody on board and talking, so that as you develop the project, the externalities come in and you go, oh, now we can prioritize these using constraint theory from Eliyahu Goldratt's book, the Goal. And even if, let's say, you're dating, you use this all the time. You don't know anything about that person that's sitting across the table. So there's a bunch of externalities. Your job as someone who's dating is to uncover externalities and find out if that person's a good match for you, right?
Yeah.
So we're literally using this all the time. If you're a manager and you've got 6 people that are working for you, it's your job to uncover the stuff you don't know. Like, what's this person's personality? How do I motivate them? What demotivates them? How do they work in a team? How do they work by themselves? Are they organized? Those are all, when you become a manager, those are externalities, and we don't necessarily know how to handle them.
At the end of the day, like you said, it comes from leadership and they're willing to do something about it. I remember that, and sometimes it's just about looking deep into the situation. I remember that we used to have a property business before, right?
Yeah.
And we are paying the electricity, right? And if we have 28 properties, we're spending thousands of pounds on electricity, right? And one day we look into this and we were looking, okay, how can we save some money? How can we cut this expense? And guess what we find out? We find out that if we buy energy saving light bulbs, right? So what we did, we ordered from China, right? Almost half a container of those light bulbs, and despite that the upfront cost it was a little bit high, it makes a huge difference for the planet, but also for our pocket.
Yeah.
We did save a lot of money. We brought a more, and then we will consistently put in those light bulbs, right? So in the end of the day, but you need to have the will, right? To what, and it might take an investment on front. I think that this is the part that scared most of the companies out there, is this initial investment that they have to make in order to make a social impact. But at the end of the day, when you measure it in the long term, right, there are technologies out there that can make things very efficient and can actually reduce your costs, right? There are obviously still a lot of research to do. There are products out there that they are very good for the planet and still expensive for the consumer. This is the question I want to ask you, because the consumer at the end of the day, right, as the living crisis that we live in now globally, right? Since COVID, the price of the food, at least here in UK, kind of double or triple. Yeah, my family live in US. I think over there is the same thing. So it seems like after COVID, yeah, food and the cost of living went up, and the salary kind of stay the same, right? So
Exactly.
people are struggling more. So now the people have less buying power, and so how they can make this conscious decision, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the politicians do, it doesn't matter what happened, the consumer have the power, and if they buy ethical products, these are the products that will survive. However, they also have the dilemma that there is not enough money, and when you make products with plastic and so on, it's cheaper, and that's the truth. So how we navigate this conflict?
Well, first of all, I think that it's kind of a trope that people worry about, that doing anything for sustainability, which is a hazy term at best, is expensive, right? And the second trope is we can buy some light bulbs and everything will be good. Like, we have to do a lot more than that, right? What I've found to be true is, if we just strictly talk about business, if you're running a business, you're already trying to figure out, how can I be better? How can I make monies back there, right? And so, I'm saying, take those meetings you're having around how can we be better? What are we going to do next? And insert zero unmeasured externalities into it, and just ask everybody in your entire company to be thinking about, what effect are we having anywhere in the organization. And this idea that things are expensive up front is not always true. A very good friend of mine, Alex Lover, who's the director of sustainability and product innovation, I always have to remember that, for Outdoor Research, which is one of those absolutely amazing outdoor companies out of Seattle. They're up there with, Patagonia, Arc'teryx, North Face, all those guys that you've probably heard of.
Wow.
He insists that when you start thinking about sustainability and thinking about next generations, you're also thinking about the welfare of your partners, your strategic partners around the globe. And he says you can go create and benefit current strategic partners with some of the tenets of sustainability. Like they want to do well as well. And so you can have an outsized impact on a relationship by actually showing that you think about them. Once again, like maybe it's their granddaughter. In the end, you're saying, hey, we don't want you sending us toxic material. Like, let's figure out how to make you a better company. That's a win-win for everybody. That's maybe there's 5 wins in there, maybe 6,
Let's talk about this because this is a conflict and some issues that we have seen in companies, right? That the company want to be ethical and want to move and become more involved in the process, right? But then you have the suppliers, right? And now it doesn't matter that you're ethical. If your suppliers are not ethical, then you leverage this and this affect the image of your company and your brand, right?
Yeah.
So actually, you have to also make an impact in your suppliers, and maybe that might take to break the relationship with that supplier and look for another one, right? So
Yep.
the mechanics of how the business and some of these business have been running for 10, 15 years, and they have long relationships, and now all of a sudden the companies are taking new avenues because they want to stay in business and they want to catch the consumers
Yeah.
that they're more savvy right now. So what do you think that how can we move the conversation in a positive way to actually create a more conscious way to do business, especially with the supply, which is 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 a big challenge because there are different companies with different policies and uh, and literally some people said mind your own business, right?
Right.
So
Well,
how we navigate this issue?
first, Harry, I'm going to point out, like, we have an absolutely amazing example happening right now
Very
of
good.
what
Tell
you're
us.
talking about. And you might have heard me, I was typing a little bit because I Googled Boeing buying back company, because Spirit Aero is a company they spun off years ago. And if
Wow.
I remember right, they were producing some of the metals or something for the Boeing aircraft, which then were coming back as, not good enough. Quality control went down. And Boeing, as part of basically being in lawsuits over the 737s and the doors coming off and the wheels coming off and et cetera, they bought Spirit Aero and are bringing it back into their fold so that they can have that quality control. They're removing externalities by bringing it back into the fold.
Very good.
So, boy, I had another short answer. Oh, I was going to bring up a quote from good old Ronald Reagan back in the Thatcher era, right? Trust but verify, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Oh,
you
let's
you
let's expand on this. Let's expand on this because this is very controversial topic here. That now all the companies they say, "Oh, we green, we saving the planet," and everybody's saying the same thing. But how many actually are saying the truth? Yeah, and how verifiable is that?
yeah, there's a lot of greenwashing going on. Um,
A
you
lot.
know, I'd like to be smart enough and informed enough to point fingers because I don't think that's such a bad thing. That's how you catch bank robbers, right? But I don't know enough about it, but I know a lot of people in manufacturing, especially outdoor retail in the United States, which is, one of the foremost, leading industry sectors when it comes to sustainability and environmental awareness and stuff like that, at least in the US, if not the world.
Hmm.
And those leaders are constantly saying, look, we're being pressured to greenwash by, sometimes it's well-meaning government policy. Sometimes it feels like it's the culture of the industry. But they want to do something meaningful, and buying tax credits in Amazon or India or wherever, carbon tax credits, just doesn't feel right to them. And it's not. It's too easy. If all these people are actually green and the tax credits are going to saving the trees, why are our forests going away so fast? Like those two things don't match up, right? So,
Yeah.
you've got to create the ethical relationships with your vendors, and you've got to trust that they're going to do the right thing. And you've got to build accountability into the conversations. And
I have a conversation with a friend of mine, yeah, and that she works in a high position in a electrodomestic company, right? Um, and so they do microwave, they do fridge, they are one of the major distributor of appliance in the world, right? And she's responsible for the sustainability, right? They actually create this job for her in the company, and she was sharing with me that they decide to change the um, the covers of the product for a more sustainable solution, right? And the feedback that they got for the clients, it was that the client was expecting this. They said, "Well, we didn't get any recognition for it. They were actually expecting this." And I was telling her, "This is the recognition." That now to be in business is not that nobody's gonna tell you, "Oh, you're amazing because you change you make more sustainable the package." Nobody's gonna give you an award or clap you for this. It's whatever.
Yeah, you don't get awards just for showing up, right, Harry?
Yeah, this is what the consumer is expecting right now. She was shocked. I said, "Look, everybody was expecting it, so she was telling me it's costing us more to do this packaging, but from the consumer side, they are like, they are like in the position where you should be doing this from a long time ago, right?" So
exactly.
So that's what I was sharing with her. I said, "This is your reward. This is your recognition. You're not gonna get more than that because this is what you're supposed to do. You're a big company."
Yeah, and I would say, what's the next thing? What's the next thing that's not on your radar that you should have done already?
Exactly.
And when you can get rid of all of those, then you can say, well, what's the thing that nobody's thought of yet?
Yeah, exactly. Once you open the conversation and things happening, then there is room for improvement, right? But also want to, Steve, define about the conscious entrepreneurs and the leadership, because people I would like to look this at the most holistic way, right? Because it's not only about create, don't pollute and create sustainable material. It's about the companies, that they can contribute to charity, that they do community work to empower the community around where they are based, how they treat the workers, where they welcome minorities and mixed race. So it's a lot of things goes into this equation of what we call it, the conscious leadership and conscious entrepreneur, more than actually so in your opinion, what are the verticals that the company should be looking at, so you can actually classify them, or give them the name that there's a company that is doing the business in a conscious way? Yeah, what are the more vertical, more important that we should be measuring, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what you mean by verticals in this particular scenario, but
yeah, go ahead.
I would say inside a company, regardless of size, whether you're 3 people or 30,000 people, I think the same rule applies. Like, keep it simple is one thing. This idea of zero unmeasured externalities. I was talking to a guy, unfortunately, I can't say his name, but he's the head of sustainability for one of the largest companies in the entire globe. They're huge. They own many companies that you're probably wearing, and they're behind you. And you know, he gets big wins in the media when they do something like open a zero impact manufacturing facility in the Netherlands. You know, it makes big news. And he said, like, the biggest impact I can actually have is up and down my supply chain and inside the building with everybody, you know, all these businesses all around the world. If they just did this one thing, we could take this step forward and then that step. And so once again, zero unmeasured externalities as a non-arguable goal. If at every single level, from janitor all the way to CEO and president and owner, if you think about what that means, you're not saying to yourself, we're going to find all the expensive stuff and then we're going to go out of business because we paid for it. But we're going to find everything, no matter how expensive it is. We want to at least put it on a list. You know, this is where agile project management comes in, but you throw it on a list in every meeting, whether it's at the management level, at a project level, it's at a strategic planning, you know, getaway with the 6 directors of various divisions or whatever that, you know, you all went to Paris, who knows? Zero unmeasured externalities tells you we have a non-arguable goal that says we're not going to stick our head in the sand. We're not going to pull a Wells Fargo and look the other way because everybody's churning through accounts. We're not going to, whoever's at AIG, all those companies that basically, they made a lot of money and some of them are gone. And we all know what they did is illegal. And we know that there's a lot of companies right now that are towing that line or stepping over it. And we just need, you got to stop doing that.
Yeah,
You know?
it's more, Steve, what we covering, like, you know, for example, when you launch a new facility which is zero waste and zero emission, wow, you get a lot of PR and a lot of attention, and this obviously is very good for the company, right? But
Yep.
for example, if that company is doing this, right, but at the same time, is not donating charity, is not doing community work to empower the community. You find that the way that they hire the employees, they hire a lot of males, and the whole thing is male dominant, and they don't give equal opportunity to females, or they have a mixed race issue, right? And because all this goes into the same bucket of conscious entrepreneur, right? One thing is to do it and to do this bit now, which is the hot thing, which is right, zero waste and look after the environment and don't produce thing. And then the company doing this just to get the PR in the media, or are they looking at the more 360 approach? That's what I was asking you about with verticals. Let me re-ask the question for you in a different way. How important is to save the planet and use materials versus contributing to charity and empower the community that the company make an impact of it, as well as give equal opportunity to women and men to work, as well as open to diversity and hide the people on the organization, because the talent that they have depends on the race or gender and a lot of things that is happening in this world that we are aware. So what is the most important?
That's a heavy question, Harry.
I'm sorry to ask. You can pass, yeah.
Well, I'm going to say that they're all intertwined, and you know, they're intertwined with, unfortunately, nationalism, xenophobia, fear, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All of those things are just it's all mixed up. And so
at the end, we want a better planet for our
yeah, and
sustainability
is just a step.
There you go.
To me, sustainability is a buzzword. We don't want to be sustainable. we want to be regenerative, and people are starting to use that term more,
I
right?
love it. I love the
And
very good.
we want things to last a lot longer. Patagonia is a good example. You were talking about how, stuff's cheaper now and it's made with plastics and throw away, and you're totally right. We might create a lot more waste. But then there's companies like Patagonia that make stuff that lasts 20, 30 years. I had my ski boots from Black Diamond, I bought in 1996.
Wow.
They are made really well, and they're finally cracking after what, 28
Wow.
years.
Yeah.
So as consumers, I think we all have to be aware of what we are buying. Here I am sitting. I don't need a guitar, but I own one. Right? I own a couple, but I don't have a garage full of them. But this is something that, taken care of, that will last 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So but I bring up Patagonia again because the way they manufacture, they actually have a series of guidelines where they rate, because they don't want unmeasured externalities. They've figured out the things that they need to rate their garment at, like how it's sewn, how repairable it is, a lot of things like that. And they've actually pulled products like a sleeping bag that they realized after it went out, that every time it came back for repair for an issue that it had, they had to throw away a bunch of the down that was inside it and then reblow down in a new way or something. And it was totally wasteful. So they just pulled it, even though it was a great product. They made a lot of money from it. And they added a new parameter to their design guidelines that said, what, on a scale of 1 to 10, how repairable is this? Because if it's under 7, we're not going to make it.
Exactly.
Right.
That's fantastic policy. Yeah. Very good.
It's a great policy. And if we're talking about designing products, that's a good example. If we're talking about diversity and community, what I would say is, and this is, maybe it's a little extreme for me to talk about xenophobes, and nationalism, but this idea of borders, we made those up. And as much as I love America, I love small towns all over the world. I have benefited from traveling around the world. I'm fortunate to live in a small town. There's lots of small towns all over the world that I would love to live in. That is, my community is not just here, but it's in a small town in China, and it's in small town in the UK, and in Scotland, and in France, and Spain.
In a global world anyway, and we have to
Yeah.
work together on this. Yeah.
Yeah. You
For
want
example,
diversity?
with the clothes is a huge problem. People are buying clothes, wearing it 2-3 times, and throw it away. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Fast fashion is. I don't have anything good to say about fast fashion.
Yeah, and again, the consumer are starting to become aware how things, and we have some progress here in UK, but very minor steps. Right.
Yeah.
And we saw some brands that the other day I was working and I saw a shop that they were selling secondhand clothes, right?
Yeah.
And people were, you bring your clothes there, and maybe, and this is the way that this is the only way that we're gonna survive, I think. So we had to start to change the behavior and the ways that we conduct businesses, and make a massive improvement. The other thing, now you're talking about leadership, right? It's also as well, all these wars and all these problems that we have in this planet is, in my opinion, lack of leadership, right?
Yep.
That's why we have all these problems in the world, and nobody wants to be a leader. So part of this holistic conscious conversation that we have here is also how can we develop more conscious leaders, right? More. This is also a big topic. So Steve, so the question everybody is waiting: how the entrepreneurs out there can consciously achieve the first million, right? What are the 5 steps that you recommend for them to take?
Okay. Well, so step number 1, don't worry about the million. You'll get there.
Very good. I love it.
And I'd say for me, you've got to be ethical. Think about non-arguable goals, and specifically 0 unmeasured externalities. You can read more about that and learn about it on our website, globallyconsciousleader.com. And I have a coaching group called a Coach Peer Circle about globally conscious leadership, where we talk about that. Also, we didn't get to talk about it much, but there's a book out there called Humane Leadership by Stephen Sloan. He happens to be an old friend of mine, and he, everything that every conversation that I've ever had that was good with an employee was because of him teaching me about MOCA, which is motivation, opportunity, clarity, and ability. Write down MOCA and then learn about it, because you have a conversation around those four things and you can uncover everything. I've used MOCA in the boardroom. I've used it with employees. It's fantastic. So zero unmeasured externalities. Go get Stephen Sloan's book, Humane Leadership. Learn about MOCA. Understand constraint theory. It's just a way to focus. There's a great book by Eliyahu Goldratt called The Goal. It's a manufacturing book, but if you're in business, and even if you're not a manufacturer, the takeaway there is that there's always one thing and only one thing that is holding you back the most right now. And you need to focus your entire company on that until the next one, because there's always one right behind it, right? So yeah, and then think about continuous improvement through agile project management. I know, like, people might be thinking, well, now I got to go take a class on that. And but you want continuous improvement. You want to identify the things that you need to focus on. Zero unmeasured externalities as a non-arguable goal will help make that list. MOCA will help you talk about it. Constraint theory will help you figure out which one to do next. And agile project management will help you actually do it, whether it's you, yourself, or a team.
Yeah, definitely when you use agile project management, the efficiency, right? The projects get done faster, better, and more efficient, right? And can save a lot of resources to the organization, right?
Absolutely. You have to have a good agile project manager, and I'm not going to say someone who's totally PMP trained, has lots of certifications. The best project manager I ever met wasn't certified, was a psychology major out of a small university in Oregon, and he just understood people and understood motivations. And so it doesn't even have to specifically be agile. I use that word. Sometimes I call it agile-ish. But you have to be flexible, and agile means flexible, because you're going to get curveballs, and curveballs are good. Curveballs are opportunities. And someone who's flexible, someone who's agile, an organization that's agile will take a curveball and, to use American baseball parlance, hit it out of the park.
Yeah, and it's that flexibility, right? That emotional intelligence without the project managers, or the how can get the best of the team, right? And how to
Yeah.
keep them motivated to achieve a common goal, right? Right, and
Yep.
the old way of doing things, that we have so many hierarchies, right? And somebody's telling everyone what to do, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
in agile is system is got more flexibility, give the opportunity to everybody to be the leader, right? And to bring things to
Yeah.
the project, right? And if
Yeah.
this,
And I like that you brought emotional intelligence into this, because
mm,
I've seen organizations that are emotionally intelligent that are run by someone who isn't, who knows they're
oh
not,
yeah,
right? And
mm,
you can have an emotionally intelligent leader and an organization that's an outright mess.
yeah,
But emotional intelligence is generally underrated, I think, and except for people who understand how effective it is at decreasing HR issues, reducing risk management issues,
saving money on the
lawsuits.
project, saving money on the project. Tell me about it. When I'm telling you, a long time ago, when we used to work and as software developer, right? The project was stuck, yes, because the graphic designers and the software developers, right? They couldn't communicate each other, right?
Yeah.
And one day the boss arrived and said, "Listen, if the project doesn't move forward, you're gonna lose, some people here gonna lose their job, yeah." And I'm looking at everything and said, "Oh, I'm the latest who came to this company, so I'm gonna be the 1st one to be fired." So I
That's
talked with
right.
everyone and I said, "Listen, guys, we need to talk to each other and we need to make this work because, you know, they're going to fight people and I'm going to be the first one. So what's your problem? And out of the communication, out of this, using this emotional intelligence, we managed to move the project forward to the point that I didn't write code anymore for this company.
Yeah.
That was from that day, I was the facilitator for the project. They realized that they make way more money like that than actually writing code. So at the end of the day, yeah, emotional intelligence is underrated. Sometimes we speak about the term and there is not enough common knowledge about this, but it's key for the project to be successful because these candidates that have the emotional intelligence, if you can identify them and work with them and design an agile system around these individuals and the people around them, the resource in productivity can be huge. Yeah, we're talking
Yep.
about in terms of time and saving money, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, have been fantastic, Steve. I like what you do a lot. We from here from London, we support you 100% in your mission. We have
Thank you,
our
Harry.
own battle here in London. Like I said, we launched the multi-author book Global and Conscious Entrepreneur, and we do everything we can to raise awareness and to every business that we coach and help them how to grow, make sure that they look at this as part of the mission and the vision, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there are companies that they have a very good strength, you know, whatever the pro they're doing, they're saving energy and they don't even mention it. And I'm like, you guys, you crazy? You should be proud that your pro, one of the things that it does is saving energy. You know what I
Right.
mean? You should mention it and be proud of it. So sometimes even the entrepreneurs that are not aware, you know, that sometimes the innovation and the product that they have created, they focus in other benefits and they leaving aside the conscious, the social benefit, which sometimes can give them a great opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
So thank you
Well,
so much,
let's make
Steve.
sure we work together to,
Oh yeah,
provide practical, time-tested resources so people and organizations can be sustainable, creative, resourceful, and resilient
and we're looking forward.
across the globe.
Yeah, so if people want to learn more about this, how they can find which website they can find more information?
They can either type it all in one long word, thegloballyconsciousleader.com, or just Google the Globally Conscious Leader. You'll find us. We actually, one of the, it's not a non-arguable goal, but one of our rules, all of our classes that we have are free.
That's
We
fantastic.
will never charge for our classes. And, so we've got a set of mentors and educators that teach classes and have some paid coaching. In fact, if somebody wants to go, I'm going to make up a discount code right now,
Go for it.
Steve7724. And if you go to our thegloballyconsciousleader.com and you can see the classes, which are free. If you want access to any of our coaches, those are subscription based. They're very reasonable. If you think you can't get good coaching and make yourself and your company better because it's too expensive, then go here and you'll see that's not true. And we're not the only ones that are doing it. There's so many good people out there. But we've got different people who focus on different things. Emotional intelligence is one. New management is another. But the discount code is Steve724 for July 24, and that'll be worth 50% off through the end of the month on any of our coach peer circles, which is what we call our weekly coaching programs. So thank you for asking, Harry.
Pleasure. There you go. So if you run an organization, large or small, and you listen in this podcast, we deeply encourage you to do something about it. It's going to be very good. Probably one of the best things that you can do for your company is look deeply in getting in optimize your projects in terms of project management, and look deep in how you can make an impact in the community around you, and how you can like we always said, do good and make money at the same time. And you will find out when you start to navigate this road, you will find out more benefit than obstacles, because you're going to end up with more happy employees, you're going to end up with more happy clients, you're going to have bigger customer retention, your customer acquisition going to decrease. So a lot of good things will happen to you if you take this this interview that we have seriously and look into those courses that Steve have there, so you can get some education, and it will help you to find investment, right? At least in UK,
Absolutely.
there is a lot of funding for available for companies, that working in sustainability and these type of topics. It will help you to find funding quickly. So a lot of good things will happen to you if you take this seriously and start to look at what can be done in your organization to make it more conscious and to do better for the planet, for the future planet that we live. So thank you so much, Steve. And
Thank
for
you, Harry.
all of you that are listening to us in the podcast or watching us on social media, see you in our next interview, how brave entrepreneurs break the wall and create the first million, between brackets, consciously. That will be even better. Bye for now.
Nice.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.